Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to be talking about some research that's going on, all about lying. When you don't tell the truth, when you say something that is false, when you deceive someone with information, that's what lying is all about. And, of course, we often talk about the fact that if you lie once, well, you have to continue lying to cover up for the first lie.
True.
And eventually people will figure out, you're not telling the truth, and you will no longer be believed, and you will be considered untrustworthy, and you probably won't be able to find a job after that.
Well, sometimes we lie to our friends or family members. Sometimes we do it not to hurt feelings, but if you're lying to protect yourself, and you have to continue to lie, you're going to discover that it's hard to remember all those lies. And you get in trouble sometimes. People go, that's not what you told me before. What's going on? But if you tell the truth, your story is always the same because you don't have to remember anything. So we're going to talk about why one lie leads to another and can get you into big trouble. And you don't want people to not trust you anymore. So it's good to be honest. It's good for your soul. We're going to get started by reading through our article.
Most people lie, and sometimes their reasons are well-intentioned. After all, who hasn't deployed a polite lie upon receiving a terrible gift? Most lies, though, not only risk a negative social impact, but are also a great burden on our brains. People may intend to tell only one lie, but instead end up telling a series of them. The web of falsehoods created in this process is intended to make the initial lie more believable. This turns out to be quite a workout for our memory, though. Telling these extra lies engages our brain's executive function, which is involved in planning and problem-solving to preserve order in our made-up story. A study by Jennifer Vendemia of the University of South Carolina showed that this scramble for consistency makes our mental workload heavier. For this reason, lying also makes our reaction times longer. Tali Sharot, a researcher at University College London, also studies lying. Based on her experiments, she has an interesting theory about why people keep lying until they stumble or get caught. The concept is called emotional adaptation. As soon as we do something bad for the first time, our brain is flooded with guilt, fear, and anxiety. Ideally, these unpleasant feelings keep us from repeating this kind of conduct. However, through emotional adaptation, the more we persist in lying, the less it bothers us. Sharot says that since there's less guilt or fear holding you back, you might be lying more. Take care to not slip into this trap.
Okay, guys, let's get started. Why does one lie lead to another? If something leads to something else, it just means it causes something to happen or it influences a following event or action. Sometimes when I eat one bag of potato chips, that leads to me eating another bag of potato chips.
Well, that's a lot of salt.
Well, I have these really small 1-ounce bags of potato chips in my apartment that I got from the States. And I try to just eat one bag, but sometimes one bag leads to another. So we use lead to talk about something that causes something else to occur afterwards, or it influences some other action. So why does one lie lead to telling another lie, Tom?
Yeah, it's a good question. This, of course, reminds me of the phrase, one thing leads to another. I think that's an old song by Duran Duran or something. Yeah. One thing leads to another.
Oh, no, one thing leads to another. I'm going to get you one thing.
Oh, no, that's a different song. That's a Blondie song you're thinking of.
Well,
But it might be a similar lyric.
See how famous that phrase is? We use that phrase a lot, lead to.
That's one way or another.
One way or another.
Yeah, but this is one thing leads to another. They sound similar. But now, of course, we're talking about a lie leading to another lie.
Yeah.
You lie once, you need to lie again to cover for the first one. It's like getting credit cards. You get a credit card and you max it out. You buy a bunch of stuff. So what do? You get another credit card to pay off the bills of the first one. Then you get a third credit card to pay off the bills of the second one, etc. It's kind of a similar concept. So most people lie, and sometimes their reasons are well-intentioned. Now, remember, to lie is to not say the truth, to say something that is false, to lie. And yes, indeed, we do this sometimes, but sometimes our lies are well-intentioned, or we say them with the best intentions. So even though our wife or our husband just got a haircut and we think it's hideous, boy, that's really an awful haircut, but I don't want to hurt her feelings. So you say something like, oh, that's really a nice haircut. It makes you look so young. You look like you have a lot of spirit. I think that's one way to tell someone you like their haircut when you really don't.
Oh, I've never heard that particular phrase before. When you're trying to get around, saying somebody has a cute haircut. Oh, that's hard. I know, but sometimes, usually the person who has the bad haircut knows already. So maybe just laugh about it. Hair grows out. That's the good news. Now, after all, it says, who hasn't deployed a polite lie upon receiving a terrible gift? Deploy here is one of our vocabulary words, and usually we use it to talk about moving military troops into position for some sort of battle or war. But we're not using it that way here. We're using it to say we're utilizing it or using it for a specific purpose. So we're going to use this polite lie to help us, save somebody from getting their feelings hurt, because we don't like to hurt people's feelings. Most lies, though, not only risk a negative social impact, but are also a great burden on our brains. I mentioned that at the beginning. If you lie, you have to keep remembering what the lie was you told, and as you embellish or give more details to that lie, then it becomes really hard to remember.
And in this sentence, we also have the phrase upon receiving, which means when you receive a gift. I could give you an example here. John passed out upon receiving the news that his pet dog had died. In other words, John passed out when he learned the news of his dog's death. I think the dog actually was run over by a large truck or something like that, so that's probably why he passed out. What a terrible way for a dog to die. But most lies, though, not only risk a negative social impact, but are also a great burden on our brains. So be careful when you lie because, well, you're risking negative social impact. If people find out that you did not tell the truth, that you lied, that you were deceitful, then you might lose those friends. You might lose a position in the company or something like that. It will have negative social impact. But they're also a burden on our brains. So yeah, when you lie, you have to remember that that is what you said about something, because if you change your story later, people are going to find you out. So yeah, that's a great burden on our brains. You got to remember when you lied, and you probably need to tell more to cover that one lie up.
Yeah, the negative social impact is the fact that if people know that you're a liar, they may not want to be friends with you. So you want to tell the truth as much as you can. I do understand telling white lies, which are the kind of lies that actually protect someone's feelings sometimes. Although, honestly, the truth is usually the best way to go. So moving on to paragraph 2, people may intend, or that might be their motivation or intention, what they want to do. They may intend to tell only one lie, but instead they end up telling a series of them. If you end up somewhere, it just means what happens at the end of the process. So I moved to Taiwan and my intention was to stay for 6 months just to rest from my job in New York. But I ended up staying for 16, 17 years now. So yeah, how things end up is how they finish at the end.
John worked hard for 30 years, but he still ended up homeless. That's another usage of the phrase end up. And again, if you tell one lie, you will end up telling a bunch of them or a series of them. A series is just 2 or more or 3 or 5 or whatever, a series of TV programs or something like that. And the web of falsehoods created in this process is intended to make the initial lie more believable. So a falsehood, of course, is just a lie, something that is not true. And it's a web of falsehoods, so you have to keep telling one lie after another to cover up for the lie before it. And, of course, you have to do that in order to make the first lie or the initial lie more believable. But eventually it gets too complicated and you'll probably slip up somewhere and people will find you out and you will suffer the consequences.
Right. I love this phrase, web of lies, because what happens is the person who is telling these lies kind of gets caught. They get caught in that web. You've seen spiders who spin their webs and little insects get caught in there, and then they eat it. They eat whatever insect gets caught. Well, if you're spinning these lies and it turns into a web of lies, you're going to get caught. And usually there are negative consequences, so be careful with that. So the web of falsehoods or web of lies, a falsehood is another way to say lie. So I know when I listen to people on TV, politicians, they'll often say, well, that was a falsehood, or that was a mistruth, or that was misinformation. What they're really saying is someone is a liar. Someone is lying. But we, at least in public, we don't like to call people liars or say, that's a lie. Although it's getting worse and worse in public conversations now. People just say, oh, you're a liar, because we're rude. We're ruder and ruder to each other. So the web of falsehoods or lies created in the process of trying to make your story or your lie more believable, it's intended to make the initial lie more believable. That's why we keep telling more lies. But this turns out to be quite a workout for our memory. Turns out just means what the consequences are or what happens in the end.
Exactly. That was the result, and it can be quite a workout for your memory. So, again, you have to remember everything you said because some people might suspect you of lying and they might try to figure out ways to get you to admit to lying, and then you'll be in big trouble. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in our lesson for today. It's time now to turn things over to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是10月12号 Unit 6。Why does one lie lead to another? 这是一篇克漏字选择的练习题，内容和说谎有关。我想多数听众都说过谎，有些人只要说谎就会良心不安。不过也有些人说谎成性，撒起谎话，面不改色，甚至被拆穿了也不以为意。这篇文章告诉我们，说谎的时候，我们的大脑、我们的心理到底怎么运作？好，我们现在一起来解题。请同学先看到第一题。前文提到，多数人都会说谎，有时是出于善意 well-intentioned。接着我们看题干本身的句子 After all, who hasn't deployed 空格 lie upon receiving a terrible gift。好，请看4个选项，这4个选项都是形容词，意思分别是 A. explosive 爆炸的 B. dynamic 动态的 C. fatal 致命的 D. polite 有礼貌的。把4个选项都试着带入句子，只有 D. polite 有礼貌的语义通顺，表示谁没有在收到不合意的礼物时出于礼貌撒过谎呢？接着请看第二题，前文说明有人可能原本只打算说一个谎， 但最终却说了一连串的谎话。接着就是第二题题干本身的句子 The web of falsehoods created in this process is intended to make the 空格 lie more believable. Falsehood 就是谎言 lie， 在过程中编织出的谎言之网，也就是成篇的谎话，是为了要让空格谎言比较可信。好，请看4个选项，这4个选项都是形容词，意思分别是 A. initial 最初的， B. spare 多余备用的， C. defensible 有防卫能力的， D. universal 普世的。根据前后文，前面说到原本只打算说一个谎，后来为了圆谎又说了一大串，因此第二题选 A. initial。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about lying and why one lie leads to another. Most people do lie occasionally, and sometimes their reasons are well-intentioned, or they have a good reason for lying. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just don't want to be caught looking stupid, or they've done something they're embarrassed to do or embarrassed to have people know about, so they lie. Or maybe they just don't want to do something, so they lie. You've probably had friends who want you to do something or help them, and you just don't feel like it. So you lie. You say you're busy or you're working late or doing something. Those are not very nice lies either. So after all, it says, who hasn't? Who hasn't used a polite lie or deployed a polite lie upon receiving a terrible gift? Yeah, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, so sometimes we'll act like we really love it more than we do. But I think that's a better reason to lie than sometimes the lies that people tell.
Right, and of course, you have to tell another lie to cover up the first one. Like, for example, you may have told your boyfriend that you were going to Elon for a meeting when you really weren't. You were going to meet a friend at a coffee shop or something like that. But the boyfriend saw you walking on the sidewalk outside of Taipei 101. So, of course, you say, well, actually, I did go to Elon, but it was a very quick meeting and we were back very soon, and etc. Your lies just keep covering up for the previous lie until your boyfriend actually talks to your friend. Did my girlfriend actually meet you for coffee? Yeah, she did. So then the lie gets exposed and then you lose trust in that person, etc., etc. You get the idea. So again, you may tell only one lie, but you end up telling a series of those lies, and then you have this web of falsehoods. And it can be quite a workout for your memory. You just have to remember all the lies that you told so you don't get found out. And telling these extra lies engages our brain's executive function. Executive means to carry things out, like the chief executive officer of a company. They're the ones who are responsible for planning and problem solving. So your brain's executive function is involved in planning and problem solving. And the brain does this to preserve order in our made-up story. So your brain starts to work overtime here, trying to keep the story straight so that people don't find out about your first and second and third lies.
Right. So if you make something up, you create it in your mind. It's not factual. It's not real. Kids love to play pretend or make up friends that don't exist. So you don't want to make up a story or create something that's not true. Now, there's a study by somebody named Jennifer Vendemia. She's at the University of South Carolina. It sounds like she's a professor. And she showed that this scramble for consistency makes our mental workload heavier. Oh, yeah. If you never tell lies and you always tell the truth, you're at peace. You know everything that you know is true is out there. You don't have to hide anything. You don't have to lie. Scramble means to move quickly. We scramble eggs, we mix them all up. But if someone scrambles to get something done, they're moving as quickly as they can. So it really, here it just kind of gives you this image of your brain having to work faster and faster to, keep your story straight. We use that phrase a lot. Oh, he's having trouble keeping his story straight, meaning he tells so many lies he doesn't know what's true anymore. So we have to scramble for consistency or make sure that what we're saying makes sense. And that just makes you tired.
Exactly. So your mind is working out and you're getting more and more exhausted because of those lies. One thing I did learn here in Taiwan, though, is there are 3 ways to talk to somebody. You can tell the truth, you can lie to them, or you don't have to say anything. The third one there seems to be the easiest because if you don't say something, then they can't accuse you of lying.
Yeah, but that's called lying by omission, meaning you don't say anything. And that's also a partial lie.
Right, so that's debatable whether that's actually lying or not. But some people are convinced that not saying anything is the same as lying. You can discuss that amongst yourselves here.
Yeah.
But again, if you tell the lie in the first place, you need to keep covering up, and it can be quite a mental workout.
Yes.
Now let's go to University College London. We've got Tali Sharot there. I hope I said that right. She's a researcher there. And she studies lying, and based on her experiments, she has an interesting theory about why people keep lying until they stumble or get caught. Now, if you stumble, that means you're walking along and then you trip on something and you try to keep standing, but you end up falling down.
You lose your balance.
Exactly. So tripping is the first action, but then when you try to recover your balance, and you fall down, that means you're stumbling. So, yes, indeed, you will stumble and you will get caught. And she has a theory as to why people just keep on lying until they finally stumble, they finally screw up, and then they get caught. Aha! Now the truth comes out.
Now, this concept, or the concept she's talking about, is called emotional adaptation. Adaptation. Put the zhong-yin on te. Adaptation. So the concept here just means idea. This is the idea that she's looking at, and she's calling it emotional adaptation. When you adapt something, it just means you change it so it fits something better. You could talk about how a new film is a book adaptation or a film adaptation, a television drama, or sometimes adaptations from the original source, which might be a play or a book or something like that, adaptation. You adapt something, again, you just make it fit the new venue or the new area that you're trying to show a little better, adaptation. If you move to another country, you want to adapt to that new country, to the climate, to the food, to the people, to the culture. That will make things easier for you, and you'll be happier.
Right, you might go through a long period of cultural adaptation, for example, if you study overseas. And as soon as we do something bad for the first time, our brain is flooded with guilt, fear, and anxiety. So, yeah, we actually feel bad about doing something bad.
Sure.
We've got guilt, fear, and anxiety. Ideally, these unpleasant feelings keep us from repeating this kind of conduct. That is ideal. We lie and we feel guilty about it, so we learn our lesson and don't lie anymore. But that's not what happens, is it?
Not really, and some people are really good liars and they just continue to lie. However, it says, through emotional adaptation, the more we persist in lying, the less it bothers us. It turns off those guilty feelings. Your guilty conscience says, okay, you're ignoring me. I'm just going to shut up. If you persist in something, you continue to do it. You don't quit. So if you're having trouble in school, persist. Make sure you're determined to succeed in the end. So persist is actually a positive thing, unless you say you want to persist in lying or continuing to lie.
And you probably rationalize, well, I'm not the only one doing it. Everybody else does this too. So why not? And I don't have any obligation to tell people the truth. So yeah, you probably rationalize. So you persist in lying. And Sharat says that since there's less guilt or fear holding you back, you might be lying more.
Oh, yeah.
You get rid of that guilt and you keep on lying. You don't feel bad about it. So, yeah, you just keep on doing it. Again, you rationalize, well, everybody else does it, so why can't I? So take care to not slip into this trap because eventually you'll have to explain all the lies that you told and you'll probably lose those friends and you might even lose your mind, your job, and all the friends you ever knew. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
接着请看第3题，多说了这些谎话会占用大脑的执行功能，这个功能涉及规划与问题解决能力，后面则是第3题空格。好，请先看4个选项，这4个选项都是动词 preserve 这个动词的不同变化，所以本题考文法。A、B、C 都是 preserve 当主要动词用，只是时态不一样。这不对，因为本句已经有主要动词了，就是 telling these extra lies 之后的 engages， 所以不可以再出现其他动词。因此第3题选 D to preserve， 不定词表示目的。这句话的意思是多说了这些谎话会动用大脑的执行功能，该功能涉及规划能力与解决问题，以维持我们所编造的故事的条理。接着请看第4题，前文提到有学者研究为什么人会说谎说到被抓包为止，他的解释是，请看本段第3句 The concept is called emotional adaptation， 这个观念是情绪适应。我们第一次做坏事，大脑就会充满愧疚、恐惧和焦虑。接着请看题干，第4题空格 These unpleasant feelings keep us from repeating this kind of conduct， 意思是这些不愉快的感觉会让我们免于重复这种行为。我们考量前后语义连贯，第4题选 C ideally， 意思是我们第一次做坏事的时候，脑子里会充满负面感受，在理想情况下，这有助于我们之后避免重犯一样的错误。最后第5题，前文说，然而透过情绪适应，我们越是持续说谎，负面情绪就越无法对我们造成困扰。Sher解释，既然愧疚或恐惧感减少了，你就有可能说更多谎，请注意不要掉入这项陷阱。好，我们看第5题的选项 A. Lifting you up 是使你开心， B. Holding you back 是阻止你不让你去做某件事， C. Letting you down 是让你失望，而最后的 D. Setting you apart 是让你脱颖而出。前面已经提到罪恶感这些负面的感受是为了要避免我们再做坏事，所以第5题选 B Holding you back。 以上是关于为什么有人会谎话连篇这篇克漏字选择所做的中文解说。 Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We hope you learned a lot about lying. And if you tend to tell a few too many lies, sit down and think about what you want to be like in the future. You want a good character where people trust you and they admire you. If they find out you're a liar, it's not good for you, really. In the long run, it's not a good way to live. So we hope that all our listeners learned a lot, especially about these new vocabulary words. We hope you'll try some this week. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.